Good evening there, everybody. What is happening? Hopefully, y'all are having a wonderful day today. So, when it comes down to it, I thought, of course, that I would give my final fight breakdown, my final fight analysis, and my final fight prediction of the great rematch that is going to be happening between the two heavyweight kings, and that of Mr. Oleksandr Usyk and that of Mr. Tyson the Gypsy King Fury. And of course, for those of you that did not know, this matchup is happening this weekend, this Saturday, so here in a couple of days. It's going to be Friday very, very soon because I'm doing this video somewhat late. It's about 25 minutes away from that of midnight, which means, of course, this fight is really almost about 1 day away. And of course, for those of you that do not remember the results that ended up happening in the first fight, or for those of you that did not end up seeing the first fight, of course, Oleksandr Usyk was able to somewhat upset the apple cart a little bit, or he definitely was able to surprise a certain amount of people, including myself. Not because Oleksandr Usyk, in my view, is not an all-time great fighter, and not because Oleksandr Usyk, in my view, is not one of the greater fighters that I've seen, and we can put many labels, amongst him, such as probably the greatest cruiserweight of all time, at least debatably. He debatably has to be up there with anybody. If we're going to count certain fighters like Andre SOG Ward as the greatest 168-pounder of all time, and other certain fighters of certain weight divisions as the greatest of that weight class, I think that Oleksandr Usyk definitely deserves a great amount of credit for what he did at the cruiserweight division, and of course recently because of what he did at the heavyweight class. And not only because of what he was able to do against AJ Anthony Joshua and also that of Danny Dubois, who recently became a very good champion, is on a very good knockout streak, I believe, in his past 3 fights. Mr. Danny Dubois, but of course what he was able to do against Tyson the Gypsy King Fury, someone that was looked at as decently skilled for the heavyweight division, someone that in my view is a relatively good defensive and offensive fighter, someone that can fight very good going forward or backwards. He can fight somewhat in a multitude of ways. Oleksandr Usyk did something that pretty much almost no other fighter, at least that's been around the cruiserweight division, has ever done before. I've never seen a cruiserweight fighter that was actually able to beat the best all-around biggest heavyweight of their day. Evander Holyfield was not able to defeat Lennox Lewis. Certain fighters were not able to defeat George Foreman or that of a Muhammad Ali during their day. When you talk about, I believe, even Archie Moore, he was not able to defeat Rocky Marciano when they eventually got in the ring. David Haye was not able to defeat that of a Vladimir Klitschko. Oleksandr Usyk was actually able to defeat a man that not only was a heavyweight, but probably was a super heavyweight. Tyson Fury is 6'9" with about an 85-inch arm reach, so he outlengthened this man and outheightened this man, outreached this man in multiple dimensions by several inches, and on top of that, he outweighed Oleksandr Usyk by about 32 or 33 pounds. So what Oleksandr Usyk did, in my view, is definitely no small feat, and that's why, in my personal view, because of the win that he got over Tyson Fury, combined with his skill set, combined with his dominance, combined with everything, the fact that he's undefeated and everything that I've seen, and the fact that he's also undisputed in 2 weight classes, just like that of an Inoue or just like that of a Crawford. That's why right now, because of the Tyson Fury victory, which I think is probably debatably the biggest win of any fighter of the past several years, at least you could debate it, especially when you talk about the context of the size difference. This was never really supposed to happen, and that's why Oleksandr Usyk right now is my personal #1 pound-for-pound fighter. In my view, it's either him or Terrence Bud Crawford. Now, of course, some people would debate Inoue, some people would debate Canelo, or maybe even some other fighters, but right now, the only 4, fighters that, in my personal view, really would have a debate at the #1 spot would be Usyk, Crawford, Inoue, or Canelo. But in my view, Inoue, he still doesn't have quite the resume to add up to be at the #1 pound-for-pound spot, just in my personal view. And when you talk about Canelo Alvarez, not only his level of competition, but he's just been clearly slipping as a fighter for the past few years. So right now, it would either have to be Usyk or Crawford, but because of the victory that Usyk got over Tyson Fury, I would probably have to have him at my #1 pound-for-pound spot. So once again, what he did definitely is no small feat, and this is going to go down in my personal view, at least in my personal opinion, as one of the greater accomplishments that a boxer has ever held in history, because that was never supposed to happen. But the real question is that what is going to happen in this rematch? Because you have certain different opinions about how this fight went down. Now, you have certain people that believe that Oleksandr Usyk dominated this fight. Now, I would say that out of all the outcomes that have been talked about, that group is probably in the minority. I'm not going to say that Oleksandr Usyk necessarily dominated Tyson Fury in terms of 9 rounds to 3 or more, but what I would say is that I definitely thought Oleksandr Usyk clearly won the fight. Now, there were definitely some swing rounds in that fight, so if you wanted to debate that it was a bit closer than, say, 8 rounds to 4, which recently is what I scored it after I watched the fight, you definitely could. I could definitely see 7 rounds to 5, maybe even going as far as 6 rounds to 6 if you really, really wanted to be generous to Tyson Fury and give him a couple of extra rounds, because there were a couple of swing rounds, especially in the first half of the fight. But just in my personal view, when I ended up rewatching this fight, the first 4 rounds, I added 2 rounds to 2. Recently, I said in a recent video that I gave Oleksandr Usyk the first 3 rounds. Well, I watched it. The first round I actually gave to Tyson Fury. You could debate that it went to Usyk, but I gave it to Fury. I thought that he was more active and landed a bit more of the 2. The second round I thought went to Usyk, and the third round was back and forth, but I also thought that it went to Oleksandr Usyk. The fourth round I thought went to Fury. The fifth round, I'm pretty sure, I probably also gave the Fury. And the sixth round, I probably also gave the Fury. But after that, to be quite honest with you, in the second half of the fight, I don't think that I gave Tyson Fury a single round in that fight. Maybe you could debate round 7 if you wanted to, but to be quite honest with you, it looked like Usyk was really starting to get to that of a Tyson Fury. Now the question is that can Tyson Fury possibly adjust in this fight, and can he possibly beat an Oleksandr Usyk? Because Tyson Fury definitely is no slouch of a fighter. Of course, certain people take a look at him and, they say that he's just this big blubbery dude that doesn't have a lot of ability. But of course, for those of us that know boxing, we know that that's not the case. Yes, Tyson Fury's physique can be a little bit, misleading because he looks a little bit flabby. And of course, he doesn't always look, as coordinated as what he needs to. But Tyson Fury definitely knows how to box. He knows how to box going forward. He knows how to box going backwards. And he is a supremely intelligent fighter when he needs to be. And that's why he was able to embarrass out of a Vladimir Klitschko and embarrass out of a Deontay Wilder, embarrass out of a Dillian White, and make some of those fights at least not even relatively close. So that's why it was a little bit of a surprise when Oleksandr Usyk was not only able to beat that of an AJ Anthony Joshua. And, it wasn't a shocker when he beat Danny Dubois. But taking a look at the recent transition that Danny Dubois has had, that probably has to be another A-grade level win that is added to Oleksandr Usyk's resume. Even though I don't find Danny Dubois to be the most skilled fighter I've ever seen, he's definitely athletic and somewhat skilled enough to at least have improved as a fighter. Usyk has to get credit for that. And of course, eventually what he did to that of a Mr. Tyson the Gypsy King Fury. But anyways, they're going to have this face-off on that of DAZN. I'm going to be talking about who I personally believe is going to win the fight. And if you're going to ask me who I think is going to win the fight, the first time around, I was going with that of a Tyson Fury. And of course, a certain amount of people, they're saying that, well, and this is why I wanted to talk about, certain people, acting about how they thought that first fight went down. Like, I watched a fight channel recently in Pro Box TV where Sean Porter talked about, or they all kind of talked about how Tyson Fury in the first half of the fight, about how he was just completely dominating Usyk and all this other stuff. Well, I think that Tyson Fury was winning the first half of the fight. Like I said, I gave him 4 of the first 6 rounds. But I don't think that it was an actual complete domination. I did think that Usyk at least pulled out 2 of those rounds. And the second half of the fight, what they tried to act like was that, well, Tyson Fury, he eventually just got caught with the wrong punch and he never really recovered, and that's the main reason why he lost the fight. And I'm just going to tell you this, I don't completely agree with that. Now, there are certain times where I've seen fighters where they ended up getting hit by a certain punch, and I never thought that they were ever the same again after that point in the fight. Like Devin Haney, for example, once he got hit with that hook against Ryan Garcia in the 7th round, he was never really quite the same again after that point, and he just kept getting hit with it in repetition, and he clearly was a little bit shaken or didn't know how to adjust enough overall to really go in and really try to beat Ryan Garcia a correct way, or, in a really intelligent way. He was just too hurt, too shaken up, and I think that he was a little bit stunned by the time Ryan Garcia knocked him down in that first time on the 7th round, and Ryan Garcia started getting in some major hits. But Tyson Fury, in my personal view, when I rewatched that fight, and I pretty much seen the same thing in the first fight, I don't think that Tyson Fury just accidentally got caught with the right type of punch later on and he was just never able to recover. It was very obvious that the type of fighter that Oleksandr Usyk is, with the type of angles and the type of movement and the type of boxing IQ and also his game plan, it was giving Tyson Fury hell in there. And Tyson Fury was starting to dominate some of the middle rounds. But Tyson Fury definitely was not dominating the complete first half of this fight, and then all of a sudden Oleksandr Usyk just caught him out of nowhere, and then he ended up completely turning it around. No, Usyk was always somewhat within this fight. Now, were there certain rounds in the middle rounds, like, rounds 4, 5, and 6, where he definitely was getting to Usyk and hurting him and definitely dominating him more maybe than some of the rounds that Usyk dominated him? You can maybe make that case, but I think that this is still going to be a very challenging fight for both of them. But if you're going to ask me who I personally believe is going to win the fight, I'm going to go with that of an Oleksandr Usyk. And I'm going to explain why as the video goes along. But anyways, let's get into it. Let's take a look at their face-off. I'm going to give you guys my breakdown.
You're in the rematch. Fight talk! You know what's coming for you. I'm going to you up.
Don't be afraid.
What do you remember about that left hand in round 9?
It was perfect. Leave you alone again.
Well, you had your little chance to knock me out, didn't you? Couldn't do it. Could you? Hit me with 10 shots in a row and couldn't do it.
You two have chance.
Two best boxers in the world.
Just to talk about that point very quickly, it's so very interesting because for those of us that remember the Fury versus Deontay Wilder fiasco, we remember when the Deontay Wilder and the LDBC and the Media fan base, when they were talking about Fury getting this quote-unquote long count, which is always a bunch of bullshit that they really tried to use because they were heartbroken and racially motivated about Deontay Wilder's loss. They always kept trying to say this bullshit about Tyson Fury getting this long count. But isn't it very interesting that none of them mention about how Tyson Fury, at least I've never heard any of them mention about how Tyson Fury, about how, to be quite honest with you, Tyson Fury is very lucky that that fight was not stopped against Oleksandr Usyk in that 9th round when he got when he got really put up against the ropes. Now, to be fair, Oleksandr Usyk did not really legitimately knock him down. Tyson Fury was up against the ropes and the referee decided to call it a knockdown. But that was probably a very good decision by the referee in order for that fight to continue onwards. And on top of that, Tyson Fury, I can't remember how much time was left, but as Oleksandr Usyk continued, there was going to be a very decent chance that Fury was going to be flat on his ass and possibly not going to be able to get back up because he was suffering severe damage. And had that been another fighter in the ring, that fight could have very possibly been stopped.
Fighting for the undisputed heavyweight championship. This is the biggest fight.
This time may have a different ending.
Hello, my friend.
Hello, my friend, Hitman. You baldy.
And of course, for those of you that do not know or that are not video game buffs, Oleksandr Usyk is dressed as Agent 47, which of course is part of the Hitman series, which is a very big video game series.
He's come for the job, and he's come to kill me.
I'll tell you.
The time has come to do it again.
He definitely has come to kill you. Tyson Fury, you have to be very careful within this fight, dude. Now, Tyson Fury apparently has gained 20 extra pounds of muscle mass or 20 extra pounds of mass in whatever way. And of course, a certain amount of people, they believe that that's the correct thing to do. And to be honest with you, I don't think that Tyson Fury is necessarily going in the complete wrong direction in terms of his fight tactics. I'm just wondering if gaining all that extra weight for someone like an Oleksandr Usyk is really the right thing to do.
Usyk versus Fury 2 is on the way live December 21st from the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. And now we get set for the fighters to go face-to-face, along with Frank Warren, Tyson Fury, Oleksandr Usyk, and Alexander Krusuk. We will talk to these guys, and they will go face-to-face right now here live on DAZN.
Fight talk!
Tell us about this hairstyle. Are you doing the Tyson Fury starter kit? What's going on?
Listen, head have remember what you do. Memory, yeah. Head have memory. Because my first fight, it was in the past. Now, it's present. My focus, it's 21st December.
He looks like an assassin.
And that's a great tactic to have. Because, certain fighters, especially in a very close fight or even fights that they end up winning. Because let me tell you what, even though I do favor Oleksandr Usyk to win this rematch for a multitude of reasons, this is still a very losable fight. Tyson Fury is a great fighter. He's someone, once again, that can fight someone in a multitude of ways. He has a great jab. He has a great right hand. He does have decent level stamina, usually great level stamina. But to be quite honest with you, Tyson Fury, he did tire out in the second half of that fight against Oleksandr Usyk. But the thing that I really didn't count on is that even though I knew that the angles and I knew that the speed and the movement of Usyk would give Tyson Fury trouble, I really did not expect him to tire out Tyson Fury as much as what he did. Tyson Fury, pretty much from round 7 onward, he pretty much was a dead dog in there. I mean, he was tired as a dog in there. That dude overall was completely out of energy. And eventually I realized that, that it was really the movement and the angles of Usyk. But I thought that had Tyson Fury really hit Usyk the way that he did, which he did hit him a lot in the first half of that fight, or at least, starting from round 4 onwards, he was hitting Usyk a lot to the upper, or excuse me, to the jaw with his uppercuts. And on top of that, he was hitting him to the body very decently well. But Usyk, to be quite honest with you, he weathered the storm quite well. I'm not going to say that he didn't budge Usyk, because there was, of course, some moments to where he clearly backed Usyk up, or Usyk was hurt. And I think Usyk even had suffered a broken jaw in one of those rounds because of a whopping uppercut that Tyson Fury had landed. But Usyk proved that he really wanted to be great and that he was willing to weather the storm. And Tyson Fury, he ended up tiring out a little bit. And I think a part of the reason why that was is because he really let Oleksandr Usyk dictate the pace. I think that Fury really should have been a little bit more aggressive in that fight. I think that he really should have tried to put Oleksandr Usyk a little bit more on the back foot. I think that he should have really tried to have Usyk backing up a little bit more within that fight. Now, Tyson Fury is going to take that approach more within this fight, which I think is the correct game plan. But he also added apparently about 20 extra pounds of mass in order to do it. And when I take a look at that, it's like, well, that could work against Oleksandr Usyk. I'm not really quite sure, but that also could really be something that's a double-edged sword. Because I think it worked against Deontay Wilder, and I think that was probably fine because, Deontay Wilder has so many flaws as a fighter. And not just skill-wise, but athletically, when you talk about him as well, even though he is an extreme level athlete, he's a great level athlete. He's not someone that, has just bundles of stamina. He's never had this great gas tank. He just never has. I'm not going to say that it's horrible, but you can possibly tire him out. And Fury was definitely able to tire him out in the last 2 fights. When you talk about his speed, he's a decently quick fighter, but he's not the fastest that I have ever seen. Usyk, he's a dude that not only is relatively fast, but sometimes he can look faster than what he actually is because of his movements and the angles that he actually provides. The movement and the head movement and the angles and also his defense really is everything in order to really tire out a fighter, because he's constantly feinting, he's constantly faking overall in terms of certain punches of what he's possibly going to throw, and he sets up the angles very, very well. He sets up fighters for punches very, very well.
Doesn't he?
He looks like a sexy beast.
Pause.
It suits him. The shaved head suits him. It looks sexy.
Like I'm sure you've been back and watched the fight a few times before, or a few times since that first fight in May. When you watch it again, how does it feel? Do you feel?
But once again, I like the ideology that Usyk has, that former fight, even though I won it, it's in the past, and all I'm focusing on right now is December 21st. So what Usyk is kind of alluding to there is that he's going to have to kind of be a new version of himself, even to potentially win this fight. At least that's what I'm taking from it. And I like that ideology because a lot of fighters, when they have a first fight, they think that they can just go into that rematch and have the same game plan and that they're going to win. I've seen Gennady Golovkin have that same ideology against Canelo Alvarez, and I knew that was not going to work for him because Canelo Alvarez knew that he was going to have to make some adjustments. That's what all-time great level fighters do. They make adjustments in the rematch. Now, I still think Gennady, there might be certain people that still might put him on the all-time great level because of the amount of title defenses, but he can never be remembered on the level of someone like that, of an Oleksandr Usyk or a Canelo Alvarez or a Terrence Bud Crawford or someone like that, at least for his generation. He's never going to be remembered on that level more than likely. So it just is what it is. But, once again, even if you won or more than likely won that first fight, you have to make adjustments. Tyson Fury did that as well in the Deontay Wilder rematch, to where pretty much, I'm not going to say everybody, but a lot of people, including myself, really thought that Fury should have clearly won that first fight. I thought that it was like that as well. I thought that the judging, especially by Alejandro, whatever the fuck his name was a terrible, terrible judging, scoring card. But I thought that Tyson Fury clearly should have won the first fight. But that being stated, Fury, of course, realized, and he was smart enough to say, you know what, I can get even better than what I was in that first fight. And he ended up putting on one of the most dominant performances in his career against Deontay Wilder in the second fight.
Well, you clearly won. I know he believes that he won that fight.
My hand was here. I win. Thank you, God.
At G-Fiber, you get uploads as fast as downloads. So sending off...
I win. Thank you, God. But if Tyson think what Tyson win, no problem. For me, no problem. Listen, we have one more fight. 21st December.
Sure.
Well, we'll see if it's just one more fight, Mr. Oleksandr Usyk, because this very well might be a trilogy if you don't watch out in this fight. Tyson Fury is going to try to come forward against you. He's going to try to hurt you very, very badly. Now, the reason why I'm still favoring Oleksandr Usyk in this fight, even though I think that that is somewhat of the way that Fury should try to beat him, is that I'm not really too hot about the extra weight gain for this fight. And certain people, once again, may say, well, it worked against Deontay Wilder. Why would it not work against Oleksandr Usyk? Because I actually thought that Fury needed to lose a little bit of weight for this fight. I think that that actually was the right approach. Because I think that if you're Tyson Fury, that you still want to retain a little bit of speed against Oleksandr Usyk, because if you're a little bit more lugging or if you're a little bit slower within this fight, you might be a little bit more defensively compromised or a little bit more compromised in terms of your movement. And Usyk proved in that first fight against Tyson Fury that he can hit, and not only can he hit Tyson Fury, he can hurt Tyson Fury. And that was one of the things that really was the question, that can Usyk really hurt Tyson Fury? Because we've seen Tyson Fury in the ring against guys like Deontay Wilder, Vladimir Klitschko, and Dillian White, and other guys like that, especially Wilder. And not even Wilder was able to put Tyson Fury away. You know, and even when he did hit him flush, Fury was able to get back up and recover. But of course, Usyk kind of pulled out a surprise. He was able to hurt Tyson Fury a multitude of times within this fight, and very badly in that 9th round.
We both put on a good fight, best we could do, and you know he's...
That right uppercut, I believe, right there is the one that broke Oleksandr Usyk's jaw. But I could be wrong about that.
Country's at war, so people are siding with the country at war, but make no mistake, I won that...
You know, let me actually rewind that right there.
21st December.
Sure. We both put on a good fight, best we could do, and you know his country's at war, so people are...
You know, Tyson Fury uses his head very good to slit, but in terms of that little exchange right there, he actually made a mistake. And I noticed that Fury does this in sparring, especially guys that are shorter than him. He'll put like his lead hand around them to kind of hug and bring them in. But then at the same time, his right hand will not be up, and, you know, he won't really use his right hand as a great defensive maneuver. His right hand needs to be up there somewhat in that exchange, you know, or try to lean your head maybe somewhat into their shoulder once you get closer than that exchange, so your head, so your head is not getting hit. Fury, you can tell that when he's against Oleksandr Usyk, that the height that was formerly an advantage against a certain amount of these fighters, that it's not an advantage against an Oleksandr Usyk. It's a little bit of an advantage, but Usyk seems to know a little bit of how to get around it. And on top of that, Fury takes a look at Usyk and says, you know what, this dude, like, I can't hit him to the body the same way as I would some of these other guys. Because if I end up overextending, this guy can hit me with an overhand left. I also think the fact that Usyk is a southpaw throws him off a little bit because he is so much shorter than that of a Fury, at least in terms of boxing standards, you know, and that if he overextends, that there's going to be possible big trouble. Because those left hands, Fury was feeling those left hands.
Fighting with the country at war, but make no mistake, I won that fight in my opinion, and I'll be back. I got a rematch clause.
Well, I like you, Tyson Fury, as a fighter. I think that you're a phenomenal fighter, and I think that, you know, you're a phenomenal boxing character. But do I think that you won that fight? Absolutely not. You just didn't do enough, sir. And in that second half of that fight, you were completely exhausted. But, you know, to be quite honest with you, Tyson Fury, and this is also what I want to say, and this is another reason why I'm favoring Oleksandr Usyk, I just think that Tyson Fury has a little bit more tread on his tires than what Oleksandr Usyk does. You know, in terms of that, you know, they're both, you know, Tyson Fury, I believe, is like, what, 36 years old? Usyk is 37 years old. These guys don't have that much time left. But, you know, certain people, they take a look at boxing or they take a look at athletes and they say, wow, you know, that dude is 37 years old, you know, or that dude is, you know, 34 years old. And this dude is like, you know, a different age. Like, they take a look at Canelo Alvarez right now. You know, and the LDBC and the media, for example, they say that, oh, Canelo's only 34 years old, you know, and he's looking terrible against guys like Edgar Berlanga and Jaime Munguia. You know, it just shows how overrated he is. He's not old because he's only 34 years old, right? But Canelo Alvarez, when you take a look at his 34 years old, his 34 years old is really like that of a 37 or 38-year-old fighter. Like him and Terrence Bud Crawford, they're probably about, maybe the same age. They probably have about the same tread on their tires, but Canelo probably even has more tread on his tires because the level of competition for Canelo has usually been way higher. And people don't understand that when it comes to boxing, especially, or sports in general, just because someone is 32 years old doesn't always mean that they're a great 32 years old. Or just because someone is 35 years old or 36 years old doesn't always mean that they're completely washed up. People love to use this excuse, anytime it suits them, and then they won't use it anytime it also doesn't suit them. When you take a look at boxers, it can kind of be like buying a new vehicle, or going to, that of a car trade, or a car salesman. You might take a look at a car, and that car might have 40,000 miles on it, but, it's been in less accidents, or it didn't need certain parts, replaced in the past as much. It didn't go through as much wear and tear. The transmission is in good shape. The drivers took care of the car in good condition. But then you might find a Mustang, or you might find another car that has, half the miles on it, 20,000 miles, but has a certain amount of more problems because of the condition of the car. Maybe it was in a couple of accidents in the past or something else like that. And that's the thing. It's not always about, how long you've been doing it, or sometimes, how old you are, I should really say. Oftentimes what matters is how long you've been in the ring, and on top of that, how much tread you really have on your tires. And tread on your tires is usually defined by the level of competition that you are in the ring against. And Tyson Fury has been in the ring against Vladimir Klitschko. He's been in the ring against Dillian White. And of course, he had 3 fights against Deontay Wilder, to where, 2 of those were very, very taxing, the first and the third fight. So, Tyson Fury, he probably has a little bit more tread on his tires than Oleksandr Usyk. And I think that Usyk has fought some pretty damn good level of competition. But Tyson Fury, just has more tread on his tires, especially I think from those Deontay Wilder fights. And I don't really know how well that's going to show up for this fight, but we'll see.
Immediately after the fight, you were asked in the ring who you thought won. You said you won, and the reason you thought the judges gave it to him because his country was at war. Do you regret saying that?
No, I don't regret anything. Why would I regret that?
So you really think they voted for him to
Listen,
win?
it was a close fight. Usyk got the raise, like he just said. He won the fight. Fair play to him. Don't make excuses. Man beat me on the night. Fair play. I believe I won the fight. That's my opinion. Just like...
Right, but Mr. Tyson Fury, they did not give Oleksandr Usyk that fight because his country was, a country at war. Now, I understand, from the delusional mindset why you would maybe think that, but from a person on the outside looking in, no, that is not the reason why you ended up losing that fight. To be honest with you, Mr. Tyson Fury, you're lucky that one of the judges even scored it for you in the first place. Because what that would have meant for a judge to score for Tyson Fury is that they would have had to have seen at least 7 or 8 rounds for Tyson Fury in that fight. And I'm just going to be quite honest. I don't know how you possibly see 7 rounds in favor of Tyson Fury in that fight. I just don't know how you see it.
If you had an opinion, he had an opinion, everybody had an opinion. But he got his hand raised and I congratulated him. It's on TV to see. I kissed his cross. I said, thank you very much.
And Happy New Year.
And Happy New Year, for sure. Do you know what I mean? So when we go again, we go again.
And that guy overall is kind of making fun of Tyson Fury, a little bit there. Because, of course, it wasn't anywhere near close, to that of a New Year. Now, I believe, maybe Tyson Fury, maybe he was just talking about, overall, because it was still in the first part of the year. So, I think that fight happened in March or something like that, maybe February. I can't remember. So maybe he was just talking about that. I don't know. But, of course, what a lot of people, of course, are saying is that Tyson Fury pretty much was concussed, or that Oleksandr Usyk, he hit him so hard in the 9th round that Fury didn't know where the fuck he was. But I don't know. Tyson Fury is a character anyway, so nothing he says surprises me.
That's it. There's no animosity. I don't hate Usyk. He's a good God-fearing Christian family man. Why would I hate him? And he's made me millions of dollars. I love him. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I got no hate. You can't make hate between these two. He's a boxer, I'm a boxer. It was a great fight. Regardless of the decision, I've said this many, many times, he gets the W. Fantastic for him and his family. Well done. Congratulations. Like I said, God gave him the result. Fantastic. But regardless of that, even from my point of view, it was a great fight to watch for the fans. I'm sure that they were entertained. It had everything. It had me doing great things, him doing great things. It was a great fight. And that's why we get to do it again on December the 21st.
You said it was an easy fight until he landed a punch from the gods.
Yeah.
Why would you describe it as a punch from the gods?
It could have punched me with that punch a million times. It may not have had any effect. But, he punched me with it and it had an effect, and that was great. Great for him.
What do you remember about that left hand?
And Tyson Fury, I'm not really quite sure if he means that that was a punch over to where it's lucky that it had that effect on me to where it was pretty much just a perfect punch. But no offense against Tyson Fury, but his defense was really starting to slip once again, starting from round 7 onwards. It was very clear that he was starting to get exhausted and that he was starting to get very, very tired in the latter part of that fight. So Tyson Fury is going to have to find a better way in this fight to really consistently have better level stamina. Now, if Tyson Fury, even with the added muscle mass or the added mass, whatever he looks like in this fight, if he clearly has better stamina, without telling me is probably a multitude of things. First of all, more than likely that he probably had better luck in terms of training and had a better training camp, and more than likely adjusted his game plan so he wasn't as badly beaten up in sparring, and that his coaches more than likely, probably had a better game plan, and that on top of it, maybe he just had a little bit of a better training camp. Maybe some of those rumors that we heard about Tyson Fury getting beaten up by some of the cruiserweight sparring partners, maybe they had a little bit more fruit than, what Tyson Fury or what some other people were willing to admit, or what I thought was potentially possible, because, I hear shit about that all the time about how this guy didn't look good in sparring, about, how this guy didn't look good in sparring, but, you can't always rely on that because a lot of people could just be spreading misinformation, or they could take a look possibly at just one bag of sparring session. So, I don't know. But to be fair, some of the guys that were talking, they did act like they were seeing multiple sparring sessions from Tyson Fury. So, it did seem like it had a little bit of fruit bearing, but, it is what it is, or, fruit, that it was bearing fruit, meaning that it had relevancy, but anyway.
And round 9.
It was perfect. Tyson good at skipping.
Was keeping good.
Yeah, was keeping good.
But you
Like I said, these two are such a character. You can't have two better characters in a possible fight. These two have great charisma, great humor. These two guys, there's something else.
had your little chance to knock me out, didn't you? Couldn't do it, could you? Hit me with 10 shots in a row and couldn't do it.
You too have chance. You too have chance.
Well, to be fair, Mr. Tyson Fury, no offense against you, but if that would have been any other possible fighter other than maybe AJ Anthony Joshua, they may have potentially stopped that fight, because you were very, very close to that fight potentially being stopped. And had that been any other fighter, Tyson Fury, and had they not possibly had, a potential rematch, for their future plans, or a potential trilogy in their future plans, they would have probably stopped that fight had you been another fighter. Had that been Daniel Dubois, or had that been Joseph Parker or someone else, there's a very good possibility that that fight could have been stopped.
You couldn't even.
Because Tyson Fury was very close to being in dreamland after that punch, and not just after that punch, but several punches. Now, does Usyk, of course, have the level of power of a Deontay Wilder or an AJ Anthony Joshua? No, not quite, but Oleksandr Usyk does have very good power, even for the heavyweight class. And more importantly, he's a savant in terms of boxing ability.
Put me down after being on Bambi legs.
And one that Tyson Fury has not seen before, because usually Tyson Fury gets in the boxing ring and he is usually the boxing savant. And there's just certain times to where fights end up like that, to where boxing savants, they finally get in the ring against someone that they've never really seen before, because they're also a boxing savant, and they say, wow, like, this dude's on a whole nother level. Like, I can't believe this dude is actually doing this to me, or I can't believe that this dude can actually do this. I seen it with Miguel Cotto against Floyd Mayweather Jr. When Miguel Cotto was against Floyd Mayweather Jr., he was so damn hard to hit in that fight. Now, Miguel Cotto, he still gave it his all in that fight, and there wasn't a time to where I seen Cotto, like, visibly take a look at Floyd and be like, wow, I'm just completely mesmerized by that dude. But Cotto, anytime that he talks about Floyd, he has the utmost respect for him, because Cotto is also a master of his boxing ability as well. But the level of defense and the level of offense and just complete game and all around, ability that he had as a fighter, he was very thoroughly impressed.
Hit me 10 shots. 10 clean shots on the chin.
Okay,
no
okay.
canvas touch.
Yeah.
You're in the rematch.
Okay.
And of course, another example would be Vasily Lomachenko versus Guillermo Rigondeaux. Guillermo Rigondeaux usually was the boxing savant in the ring. Then he got in the ring against Vasily Lomachenko, got completely embarrassed and quit, because of an alleged hand injury, which is bullshit. He just quit because he knew he wasn't going to win that fight. Kind of went out like a sucker in my view in that fight, but it is what it is. And I like Rigondeaux, but that was not a good look. I've also seen it against other fighters as well. Caleb Plant versus Canelo Alvarez, where Caleb Plant is a pretty good boxing savant. He's just not on the level of Canelo. And that's why later on in the fight, he said, yeah, I'm a pretty good fighter, huh? Because that was basically his admission of getting Canelo Alvarez to try and acknowledge him as a good fighter, because he knew that he was not going to last throughout that whole entire fight.
Like Tupac said, you hit me with your best shots and couldn't do all. You know what's coming for you. I'm gonna you up, bitch.
In the build-up to the last fight, his
Well, definitely didn't do fuck all Tyson Fury, because not only did he get the knockdown, but he damn near put you in dreamland.
father headbutted a member of the team. Blood coming down. We all remember that.
That was a perfect headbutt as well.
What's going to happen if somebody in his family does that to your team?
That
ain't gonna happen. Let's not go there. That ain't gonna happen.
This man's trying to stir shit up, isn't you?
It's a face-off,
I can
man.
see you're a DAZN man.
This
Calm down.
fight doesn't even need that, because it was such a great fight between two of the best heavyweights of the 21st century. The last fight was a magnificent.
Of course, Frank Warren was panicking a little bit there, because he's like, hey, don't you fuck up everybody's money, over and have this fight moved to another date. We need this fucking fight to happen. Shut the hell up. Because, of course, if some idiot from one of these teams, including John Fury or something like that, if one of them ends up headbutting one of the fighters and then all of a sudden they end up getting a big cut or a broken nose, all of a sudden they have to move this fight a few months outwards.
Fight, and it will be the same again. Anybody who knows anything about boxing will be tuned in on the 21st to see this, because this is going to be another great, magnificent fight.
You think it goes the distance like the first one did?
No, I think he's going to win it, and I think he's going to stop him.
What do you think?
I could see a stoppage by either man in this fight. I really wouldn't be surprised. I could also see this fight going the distance. I'm going to predict that more than likely that Usyk will win this fight by distance or by unanimous or majority or split decision. I think that, he's either going to win by probably unanimous or by split decision. But we'll see what ends up happening here. But if a knockout ended up occurring, I really wouldn't be surprised. The question that I have about Tyson Fury is not necessarily about his boxing intellect, but the question that I have is that how are you going to be able to handle the movement of Oleksandr Usyk, especially once again, because it's very obvious that the movement of Oleksandr Usyk and that the angles and the great defense, of course, Usyk could have defended a bit better to the body. He's always had a bit of a problem at times defending to the body, but he was getting better as the fight went along to defending to the body. And on top of that, the movement and the constant angles and the relentless stamina of Oleksandr Usyk was just unimaginable, I think, for that of a Tyson Fury. I don't think that he thought that Usyk was really going to be able to withstand the amount of pressure or the punching power of him throughout the whole entire fight. And on top of that, that he was going to be able to move like that throughout the whole entire fight after he ended up really throwing all that stuff at him. And Usyk kind of took some of those middle rounds off, in my personal view, because I think that he was really trying, in the second half of the fight to really, get a second wind and maybe catch Fury if he would have been tired. And that's exactly what happened.
Alexander.
You mean the result?
Yeah.
The outcome?
Or maybe I shouldn't say that Tyson Fury, seen it as unimaginable, but I think that if I were to guess, and I could be wrong, that Tyson Fury was expecting that Usyk would be a little bit more tired and nowhere near as maneuverable as what he was supposed to be, as what he was in that first fight once he really started laying the damage on him. And I think that when Usyk was still, moving at those angles and still keeping his hands up very decently well, and still showed great stamina throughout the fight, I think that Fury was a little bit surprised. Now, Usyk has always shown a great gas tank. He's always shown that he can do that throughout 12 rounds. But Usyk has sometimes shown a little bit of diminishment, at least in some of those latter rounds. Say against AJ Anthony Joshua, he did a little bit in the second fight, a little bit in certain moments of the first fight. So I think Fury took a look at Usyk and thought that, I think that there's a very decent chance that I can maybe get this guy to tire out a little bit, or that, this guy, that he's going to possibly retreat a little bit and not dare to come in as much. And that's not what happened.
Well, we've seen the first fight. That was, a fortune for any boxing fan to see the fight of that magnitude. Two best boxers in the world fighting for the undisputed heavyweight championship.
First time this century.
Wow. And then to see them fighting again in a row, it's almost a miracle.
This fighter just trying to keep up. Get moving.
Dude, just for once, walk at my speed.
And in a row, it's almost a miracle. Thing I want to mention is very important, that I want both guys to have a successful training camp. So they come ready, healthy, and wealthy. And let the best man win again.
Was your last training camp as good as it could have gone? I know you were dealing with the cut.
No,
you
it
couldn't
was.
spar.
I don't make any excuses. It was a fantastic training camp. Never once have I ever said I had any problems in camp, because I didn't. I've heard a load of talking I had a lot of problems in camp, but I didn't have no problems. I had a fantastic training camp. He beat me fair and square. Give the man his props. I don't understand why people have got to have an excuse.
Tyson Fury overall stating that he believes that he ended up winning the fight. Now, of course, that is the man's opinion. Do I believe that he ended up winning the fight? No, I don't. And to be honest with you, I don't think that it's really that debatable because, once again, the second half of the fight was completely dominated by that of an Oleksandr Usyk. And I thought that Usyk at least took 2 of the first 6 rounds, especially 2 of the first 3 rounds. So in my view, I don't think that there's really much of a debate that Tyson Fury ended up winning that fight. But, you know, it is what it is. But once again, I'll at least give Tyson Fury props for somewhat giving Oleksandr Usyk his props because, of course, he certainly could have went the Deontay Wilder route and made 1,000,002 excuses. And some of the most bullshit made up excuses that I've ever heard in my life.
Like, oh, well, I lost the fight because I didn't train great, or I lost the fight because the chef didn't cook me the right foods. He won the fight. That's it. That's the end of it. There's no more to say. There's no excuses. I had a fantastic training camp. I thought I did fantastic in the fight. He did fantastic, so he got his result. Fair play, end of. There's no more talking to be say, oh well, I did this wrong, I did that wrong. I did nothing wrong. I did everything.
Well, I can't completely disagree with you there, Mr. Tyson Fury. You did do certain things wrong within this fight. You know, first thing being is that Tyson Fury, even though I think that he's a great fighter, he needs to keep that right hand up a little bit more, especially against a southpaw like that of an Oleksandr Usyk. He needs to try to really move away from the left hand of an Oleksandr Usyk. Sometimes he was kind of moving in more of the range of the left hand. He was moving to the right, which of course is moving more towards Oleksandr Usyk's left hand. He needs, when he throws that right hand, to turn over the shoulder a little bit more because sometimes he throws it a bit too square, or sometimes he throws it and he doesn't turn over with the shoulder, which means what? That means that the whole side of your face is going to be very vulnerable. And if sometimes you don't commit to it fully, which sometimes he didn't because he was a little bit afraid, or at least a little bit, skeptical of, which angles Oleksandr Usyk was going to come at, he basically sometimes threw it and then he would not return that right hand to his face. So then if Usyk was in range, or if he was able to avoid that right hand from Fury and then he ducked under it and got it within range, what that meant is that the right side of Fury's face was completely wide open.
Good. So did he. He got the decision. A split decision. Cat's whisker, innit? If I would have got the decision, great. He got the decision. Fantastic.
Well, had you really gotten that decision, Tyson Fury, that probably, I'm not going to claim that would have been a complete robbery, because maybe you can argue that Tyson Fury would have been 7 rounds to 5, but in my view, it would have been very controversial. It definitely would have been one of the more controversial decisions that I would have seen, because no offense against you, Mr. Tyson Fury, I don't really see an argument as to how you realistically won that fight.
There's not much to say, is there? Am I going to go and change everything in my camp because I lost a split decision? Hell no.
You seem like you were fighting better going forward, but you chose to fight backwards a lot. Am I saying that wrong? Was that the strategy?
I chose to fight backwards, yeah.
But going into the fight,
which in my view was a little bit of a mistake. Now, don't get it twisted. I think that, there's going to be moments where Tyson Fury does need to fight on the back foot a little bit. I think that that's going to be necessary against an Oleksandr Usyk. And if he thinks that he's just going to go in there against Oleksandr Usyk and be this complete bulldozer and go forward without any thought, then of course he's wrong. But I don't think that Fury is going to do that, because Fury has always shown that he has a certain amount of intellectual property, behind that of his fighting style. Tyson Fury is a very decently intelligent fighter. But the question that I have is that might even be potentially harder, because you're going to have to move around a decent amount. You're going to have to feint and use that lead hand quite a bit. And what you're then going to have to rely on is that Oleksandr Usyk is going to be more affected and more hurt by your punches, which he very possibly could be, because we all know that Deontay Wilder was when Tyson Fury added that 20 pounds of muscle mass, or that 20 pounds of mass. And that B, also that Oleksandr Usyk is going to retreat a little bit more, and that he's not going to be as willing to come forward and not going to be as willing to really try and throw down with you. And I'm just not quite sure if I see that happening, because first of all, I think that added weight might tire out Fury a little bit more than what it did in the Wilder fight, because of just the amount of angles and the movement that Oleksandr Usyk has, unless Usyk ends up underestimating Fury a little bit, and I just don't see that happening. And when you talk about it, I think that added weight, I think that it might be a little bit more detrimental in this fight than what it was in other possible fights. I think that it was a great add-on for the Deontay Wilder occasion. I think that it could have possibly been a great add-on for other fights as well. But for Oleksandr Usyk, I'm not quite sure if that was the best strategy in my personal view. Maybe 10 pounds of muscle mass or 10 pounds of mass, I think would have been fine. But 20 pounds of mass, that is going to wear you down, because Usyk isn't just a guy that, really makes you move your feet quite a bit. He makes you move every part of your body. Like, he makes you move your feet, he makes you move your head, he makes you move your arms. That dude makes you work. And that's also the importance of, great upper body movement and great head movement and great foot movement. You don't just move out of the way of certain attacks. You also make your opponent move, and you make them think a little bit more, because they don't know exactly where you're coming from. And on top of that, if they have to throw more feints or try to set up more angles, especially a bigger guy like Tyson Fury, what that means is that they're required to use more stamina. And Tyson Fury usually has excellent stamina. But combined with the wear and tear that he has, and on top of that, the smaller and shiftier opponent that he's going to have to deal with in Oleksandr Usyk, the more maneuverable opponent, I'm just not quite sure if the 20 extra added pounds this time is going to be a significant advantage. But we'll see.
You're like, I'm going to have to chase him. He's going to be into the fight. You're like, I'm going to have to chase him. He's going to be a rabbit.
Yeah.
But you were kind of the one going backwards. Why was that?
Because I'm a slick counterpunch boxer, as you can see. As you can ask by Usyk's jaw and eye bone. When I right uppercut, lead right uppercut was hitting him in the face. Boom!
What's the plan for the next one?
Same. I don't need to do anything more because it was close. So if I don't get a knock, I've 10.
Well, I don't completely agree with you there, Mr. Tyson Fury. And that's why I have to actually favor Oleksandr Usyk a little bit more here. Now, Tyson Fury, of course, is a character. You never really know sometimes exactly what he is thinking. Sometimes he'll let something on and, it's not exactly what exactly he's going to do. Of course, we heard rumors, and I think even Fury himself stated that he was going to be 300 pounds and all this other stuff for the third Deontay Wilder fight. Then, of course, he showed up at the exact same weight that he was last time. Definitely not 300 pounds, maybe like 380 not 380, but 260 or 280, somewhere around there. I can't remember. So Fury is always a guy that, he's a little bit, he's a little bit foxy in terms of, overall, his mind. He tries to trick you possibly a little bit. So, I'm not really quite sure, how many adjustments Tyson Fury is going to make. I do believe that, of course, he is making some adjustments because, of course, he added a certain amount of mass. And on top of that, he said that he's coming a little bit more forward this time around. So Tyson Fury obviously is trying to make certain adjustments, but we'll see what level of attacks that he is going to have to attack with Usyk, because in my view, he is also going to have to add a couple more attacks.
8 round in round 9, then I maybe win the fight. If I on the cards, yeah. So maybe if I just keep a little bit more focused, same again, pop. I'm not going to change anything because.
Well, that's very particularly interesting, and this is where I had to disagree with a lot of people that state this, and also with Tyson Fury. Tyson Fury was not, he didn't get hit with that punch overall because it was just a punch from the gods, and that Oleksandr Usyk just ended up landing that punch out of nowhere. In my personal view, Usyk was planning overall eventually for Tyson Fury to possibly tire out in the second half of the fight, or at least to save his second win for the second half of the fight. I think that Usyk kind of fought Fury a little bit more than the first 4 rounds. Then he kind of took it off a little bit within the 5th, 6th, and 7th because, not only because Tyson Fury was giving him some very good work, and, because Tyson Fury, he was, or not the 7th round, excuse me, but the 4th, 5th, and 6th rounds, not only because Fury was hitting him with some very, battering punches and some very good power, and also setting up some very good attacks, but also because I think Usyk thought that, the second half of the fight, especially the final 5 to 4 rounds, that those are going to be a little bit more vital. But I mean, I could be wrong. Maybe Usyk, maybe he just eventually found his second win and just finally it clicked within the 7th or 8th rounds, because that's when Usyk, in my personal view, really started turning it around. I gave him every round of the second half of the fight. So Tyson Fury stating that he would have won that fight had the knockdown not occurred, and, had that not turned the fight around. Personally, in my view, I don't really agree with that, because Tyson Fury started tiring out. So once again, what I want to know is how well is Tyson Fury going to adjust, and what is he going to do different that is going to handle Oleksandr Usyk's little movements and also handle, his maneuverability, because that is going to be a big issue.
It wasn't a one-sided beatdown. It was
And once again, that added muscle mass, I think, was a great add-on for Deontay Wilder, because Wilder is very limited. He's really only going to be able to do so much. You can hit him with a certain amount of your jabs and your right hands, and he was very particularly accurate against Wilder, because Wilder does not have the best head movement, nor does he have the best defense. Usyk has extremely great head movement. He has exemplary head movement. And on top of that, great foot movement. He has very decent defense, especially up to the head. that might tire out Tyson Fury, especially if he has to use his jab repeatedly and his lead hand so much, and the fact that it's slower, it might make him a little bit more hittable, and it might make him overall a little bit more compromised in terms of defensively and his movement. So that's why I say I'm not really quite sure if the added weight was a good thing for this fight, but we'll see.
Close fight. Could have went either way. I'm not complaining.
You want to keep the weight? You want to go up in weight?
No, I want to box like I did before.
Speed.
Going into the last fight, you were asked to send. Did you have a message for Tyson Fury? And you said,
now, interesting. What the guy asked there, the guy next to Oleksandr Usyk, he said, "You want to go up and weight?" And Tyson Fury said, "No, I want to box like before." So I wonder how much muscle mass, or I wonder how much mass Tyson Fury is gaining really. In fact, who knows? He may not gain any mass at all. Now, to be fair, I've not really checked out his training camp. I've not really checked out, overall, any of the pictures or any of the workout routines that he's been doing. I haven't really taken a look at his body. I'll see it at the weigh-ins tomorrow, of course, but we'll see. Tyson Fury could be full of shit. He maybe didn't add on any extra weight whatsoever.
just don't run from me. Do you feel like he ran from you in that fight?
No, I say not run. Don't be afraid. I will not leave you alone again.
Welcome to AutoZone. What are you working on today?
Picking up the Duralast brakes I ordered online this morning.
Right now, you can save 15% when you buy a set of Duralast pads with rotors.
And what does that even mean? Don't be afraid of a boxing match, please.
Yeah, it's a boxing match.
I've had many boxing matches before and not been afraid. I'm sure you have as well. You've had 300 amateur fights.
Well, I'm not going to say that Tyson Fury is quote-unquote afraid of Oleksandr Usyk, but I think that, at certain times that he does get a little bit startled, or, if you don't want to use that word, I think that he definitely gets a little bit puzzled by that of an Oleksandr Usyk. Because even though Tyson Fury was getting some good jabs in there and some good right hands, especially some really good right uppercuts, Tyson Fury was not able to land as many punches against Oleksandr Usyk as what he was against some other opponents. Now, of course, Usyk is lighter than a lot of those fighters, and of course he's more maneuverable and really more of a cruiserweight, so that of course was to be expected. When you're in there against a smaller opponent, especially one that is so shifty, and Fury of course is going to be the slower fighter of the two, even though he's pretty quick himself, especially for his size, that of course is to be expected. But I think that Tyson Fury was definitely puzzled in some of those rounds by Oleksandr Usyk, and sometimes really could not figure out the riddle at least fast enough in order to be successful enough as what he wanted to be in some of those rounds, which I do think cost him in some of those rounds.
I'm not going to be afraid of a boxing match. So yeah, I don't really make much of that.
Do you think this fight will look a lot like the first fight did, or will it be different this time?
Because Tyson know what I do. I know what Tyson do. But it's will be a different fight.
Is he the best fighter?
I think it will be a different fight, at least a little bit of a different fight, especially because of what Tyson Fury plans to do. But I do expect Oleksandr Usyk to come out victorious. Now, if Fury ended up coming out victorious, I wouldn't be surprised whatsoever. I just think that Usyk is going to be probably the fighter that debatably, if one were to have better stamina throughout the fight, I think that it'll be Usyk just like the first time around. And I think that Fury, that the added weight, if he does actually gain that weight, that it might be a little bit of a detriment. But of course, let's also talk about the possibility if Tyson Fury really doesn't add any weight whatsoever. Now, I think that more than likely that he is going to add a little bit of muscle mass or a little bit of mass, but let's just say, for example, that he doesn't. Then I think that probably is the best situation. But even if he comes forward against Oleksandr Usyk the whole entire time, I just expect that Oleksandr Usyk more than likely, I think that he more than likely is probably, still going to somehow be able to find a way to outmaneuver that of a Tyson Fury. And I think the fact that he got the knockdown and the fact that he hurt Tyson Fury in the first fight, I think that that is going to give Oleksandr Usyk enough confidence, and I think that that might be a moment to where in certain times to where if Usyk hits Tyson Fury with a good left hand, it might let Tyson Fury kind of recover a little bit or reset his factory settings a little bit and kind of sit back and maybe not throw as many punches to try to figure out Usyk, because in my view, Tyson Fury has a hard time sometimes figuring out that Usyk puzzle. Now, of course, some people might make the argument, well, he got knocked down against Deontay Wilder twice in the first fight, and then in the second fight, he completely whooped his ass, and he didn't really have to reset his factory settings against that of a Deontay Wilder, and that's true, but at the same time, Oleksandr Usyk, he's just a completely different breed of fighter. He has many more tools and many more skills than what a Deontay Wilder had.
you've been in the ring with?
I think yes. Listen, much respect for all my opponent because it's boxing. It's a tough sport. It's a very dangerous sport. Listen, this man.
And Usyk, in my personal view, has a very good resume. When you talk about that cruiserweight division, when he ended up defeating a lot of those guys, he ended up defeating the undefeated, I believe, Murat Gassiev. Now, Gassiev, in my view, is not the most multi-dimensional fighter, but he did, and he was the first one to knock out the undefeated Cuban cruiserweight guy, Junior Dorticos, the guy that was just running through people and knocking everybody out. You know, probably not some of the most talented fighters on his resume, but that's who Murat Gassiev was able to go through, and Oleksandr Usyk pretty much clowned on him. He was able to beat Maris Bradis, of course, who's a relatively talented boxer, or used to be during that time, was undefeated. Oleksandr Usyk outboxed him. Glowacki, you know, who was a very good Polish fighter, knocked out Marco Huck, who, you know, pretty much is a very stiff German fighter. But Glowacki was able to stop him, I believe, and knock him out when Marco Huck was at one time looked at as the #1 cruiserweight on the planet. You know, at least, you know, probably about 10 years ago, Glowacki was able to stop him. Usyk was able to outbox him. And then, of course, he goes to the heavyweight division. He beats Danny Dubois, who later on, just a couple of fights later, becomes a champion. You know, beats Anthony Joshua, beats that, I believe, of Jarrell Big Baby Miller. Also beats that of Filip Hrgovic, who's looked at as one of the greater prospects in the heavyweight division. Then, of course, he ends up defeating that of AJ Anthony Joshua, or he defeated AJ before Danny Dubois. Then, of course, he defeats Tyson Fury. So Usyk has a pretty tremendous resume.
Very famous world. It's a big man. I'm small man.
And of course, you know, we bring up Tony, you know, some people may not bring up Tony Bellew. I'm not really quite sure if I would claim that Tony Bellew is an A-grade level fighter, but at least he was a champion when Oleksandr Usyk would have fought him. In my personal view, the bigger threats probably would have been Maris Bradis and Glowacki and Murat Gassiev, but, you know, Tony Bellew, of course, he was a champion.
This big man, but we have second fight. Listen, boxing, it's a not play. Boxing, it's a hard sport, tough. When you back home after you fight, all my body talk me, hey Alex, please.
Don't do it again.
Yes. I say,
Frank, what do you think's on the line as far as legacy for these two fighters in the rematch? What does this fight mean?
Well, I think a lot of the journalists and what you read afterwards from people, they were saying that whoever won the fight was going to be the best heavyweight of the 21st century, the first unified champion, and they go up there with all the greats of the past. And I'm glad they've said that, because at the moment, you've got, you know, Alexander got the result. He won the split decision. Tyson wins it, then that's where that mantle goes, that he is the best.
When the Wi-Fi is working all through your house and the family's online,
The best of his generation.
No, Frank. There will be a rematch, a rubber match trilogy.
Well, fine. If there's one,
There's got to be.
But you're
Absolutely, and that's what I said. Oleksandr Usyk says that this is going to be the last fight. Now, of course, in his mind, you know, it's going to be because he's going to win this fight. So in his personal view, of course, you know, this is going to be the last fight between the two of them. So I don't mind Usyk doing that. But, of course, you know, the plan is that there's going to be a trilogy between these guys. So if this fight is very close, they may be looking to give it to Tyson Fury. But we'll see.
He wins one and I.
So like I said, even Usyk, even though he won that first fight, he's going to have to try to make some adjustments as well, because Tyson Fury adjusts very decently well. He's a very sharp, he's a very quick-minded, and he's a very intelligent fighter and a very skilled fighter.
One. I can't say I'm better. He can't say he's better. There has to be a third one.
Well, no. Well, if you end up winning the rematch, and I agree with you, Mr. Tyson Fury, there will have to be a third one. But once again, we'll see what ends up happening.
I'm with you on that. But the point is, you asked about this fight, and that's this particular fight. That's how it be. And I look at Tyson. I looked at that first fight he had with Deontay Wilder, where he went in as an underdog. Why they made him that, I don't know, but they did. And I look at that last round, and he won that fight. But I look at that last round, but then I looked at the next.
Agreed, he didn't win that fight. It was an absolute. You want to take a look at a fight that's a quote-unquote robbery. That was a fight that was a quote-unquote robbery. You know, and you want to take a look at a quote-unquote cherry pick gone wrong. Like, people talk about, like, the LDBC and the media, they always talk shit about the, you know, Canelo Alvarez or some of these other fighters where it's a cherry pick quote-unquote gone wrong. Like, they literally try to emphasize how Canelo versus Bivol was a cherry pick that went wrong, which makes no fucking sense. You want to take a look at a fight that was a cherry pick gone wrong, or a fight that definitely, you know, was not up to the standards of what was expected. Take a look at Fury versus Deontay Wilder. Fury was looked at as basically pretty much being nowhere near the fighter as what he once was, or, you know, a fighter that pretty much was going to be brought in because, you know, people did not really know how good he still was, and he pretty much embarrassed Wilder for most of those rounds.
Fight and what he learned from that fight and what he had to do.
Well, I'm not going to say nowhere near as good as what he once was because he was still undefeated, but he was like that as a fighter to where, you know, people were looking at him to where he definitely was not as good as what he once was. He was not as sharp. He had not fought anyone that was highly ranked in a very long time. And then he went in there against Deontay Wilder, the great knockout artist. Fury was really supposed to be another knockout victim. And he almost was, of course, in the 12th round. But, you know, of course, he got back up and was able to get a draw, which really should have been a win for him. But, of course, they were trying to set up that Anthony Joshua versus Deontay Wilder victory. So at that moment, Deontay Wilder had more value. That's why they scored it a draw.
And that's what I like about Tyson.
Because they thought that Tyson Fury, they didn't really expect him back in the mix again.
He's got a great boxing brain. He knows what he has to do. And, you know, what Alexander is, of course, he's saying, in his mind, it'll be a different fight because they've shared 12 glorious rounds of boxing together. I mean, they know each other backwards. And they, in their minds, this is my opinion, not Tyson, but in their mind, they'll know what they think are the strengths and what the weaknesses are. What can I improve on? What should I have done differently? What can I do this time? So, and they're smart guys. These two are smart boxers. They're not just two
Well, in my personal view, if you're Tyson Fury, what do you do differently? In my personal view, you know, whether you added on the weight or not, you know, you're definitely going to have to get that lead hand out there. And the lead hand was great, but definitely keep that right hand up. That is something that I would definitely try to improve on. Do not go into the range of Oleksandr Usyk's left hand. And when I say that, I don't just mean overall, like, don't try to run into it, meaning going to your right to Oleksandr Usyk's left hand or trying to run into it. Try to limit that as much as possible. But on top of that, Tyson Fury needs to be very careful when he starts clinching or gets in certain exchanges that are very close up, because sometimes he leaves his hand down, or sometimes he'll leave his arms out a little bit too long, because you can tell that he's so used to that long reach and he's not expecting a punch really to come back, because a lot of fighters probably wouldn't be able to reach him. Be very careful, because Usyk can see that and he's going to be able to land certain punches. We've seen that in a part of the beginning of this video. Be very, very careful. That be very wary. Be defensively responsible and aware at all times. Do not take any defensive possible advantage for granted, because Usyk is going to be able to see it. He is an incredibly smart fighter.
Forward fighters, they are thinking.
And go to the body early against Oleksandr Usyk. Get that right uppercut in there and then quickly return that right hand to your face. All right, throw some feints in there. Overall, once again, get Usyk maybe to possibly bite on a couple. Throw that right uppercut to the body early. Go to the body. Use that jab to the lead hand. Throw a double jab out there. Those are the things that I would change if I was Tyson Fury. If I'm Oleksandr Usyk, I'm doing probably a lot of what I did within the first fight. But of course, go to that body early just like you did. Try to get Tyson Fury to run into that left hand. If you can throw a feint, Oleksandr Usyk has great feints. He's probably going to try to throw, a fake double hand lead at times, or throw a fake, jab or a feint jab. Try to possibly get Tyson Fury to overextend with the right, then catch him with the overhand left. If you're Oleksandr Usyk, you really want Tyson Fury to be on the back foot throughout the majority of this fight.
Great fighters, and they got big hearts. They got big. Everything about them is big. They're big men.
Really, both fighters want the other fighter on the back foot of this fight really throughout the whole entire fight. Because when you're talking about, that of an Oleksandr Usyk, for Tyson Fury's perspective, if Usyk is pushing Tyson Fury forward the whole entire time, especially being heavier, that means that Usyk is going to be controlling the pace. And you don't want that, because that means that you're going to get more tired. And on top of that, that Usyk is more than likely getting more punches in.
Big hearts,
and gaining more confidence.
Big boxing intellect, and they're in the biggest fight. This is the biggest fight. This is the fight for it all, for all of it, everything.
Tyson, your final words to Alexander in this face-off.
Good luck in the training camp. Prepare good. I hope you get through it all great, and we have a great fight on the night.
Same, you too.
Yeah?
Yeah. Dangerous, please. Аккуратней. Be cautious, please. Because was great fight.
This will be better.
Yeah. You can do sign me?
Thank you. They seem to be best friends all of a sudden, but that will certainly not be the case. December 21st, live from the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. It's Usyk versus Fury live on DAZN.
Those two are certainly some characters. Let me tell you what, they definitely have a lot of charisma and they have great fighting skill. That's a part of the reason of what makes this fight really so great. But we'll see what ends up happening. But I am going to go with Oleksandr Usyk. I'm going to go with Usyk by that probably of a majority or unanimous decision. But if Tyson Fury ended up getting it, I wouldn't really be surprised whatsoever. It depends on what certain adjustments Usyk might be able to make. And on top of that, how quick, or how much the weight gain, if Fury did gain weight, how much is really going to affect him. But I expect Fury to come in, with a little bit of extra weight. We'll see what ends up happening, but it's going to be very particularly interesting. But I predict Usyk because I think he's still going to be a little bit too maneuverable and just a little bit too savvy for that of a Tyson Fury. And that's stating a lot because Fury is a very savvy and a very intellectual fighter. But he's meeting someone that I think is even on another level compared to him. Just a little bit. But we'll see. But anyways, that pretty much is my fight prediction. We'll see if I'm wrong. We'll see if there are certain factors that I did not include. And of course, once again, I have no problem admitting that I'm wrong when I get a fight prediction wrong. So we'll see. But anyways, that pretty much is about it for today. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'll talk to you all later.